for this video, we're going to look at the Six of Pentacles, and we'll start here with the RWS card. And this card, of course, is about giving. We see a man that's giving some coins to some people, but it's also about receiving and how that can also be a challenge. Now, the man is holding these scales. So when we're giving, it's important to be fair. It's important to think about what we're giving and why, because those things do make a difference. What is the overall goal? So that is the RWS card. There's more to this card, but we're going to look at some other decks here. And the first one is the Penumbra Tarot. Now, on the Penumbra Tarot, we can go back to a previous video where we have the Five of Pentacles, and we had this guy who was isolated and buried under these trees. And if we look at the Six of Pentacles, we have the same guy here, but he's not alone anymore. He's at a table with a bunch of people, and they're working towards something. So I think that when we come together and when we unify, it can take a lot of the pressure off, and it can help someone to be in a much better situation. Now, on the Tarot of Physics, that's illustrated with a wheel. So we have a wheel, and the spokes of a wheel, the tire itself, it distributes the weight so that when you're moving forward as a unit, it's a lot easier and things don't collapse. You don't have things having too much pressure on them at certain points in time, because there's times where you may be at the bottom of the wheel and all the pressure's on you, or you may be at the top, but that's how life is. Sometimes you're up, sometimes you're down. And that's also why that balance is in that man's hand. He may be on the giving side now, and it's important that he is doing that, but he could also, at some point in time, need to ask for help. Now, this card is Moon and Taurus, and I like on the Tabula Mundi, so we'll switch to Thoth here for a moment. We can see that it has some components of both the Moon and Taurus embedded in it. So it has this compass up here, and on this compass you have two things. You have a part of what's on the High Priestess card, and I'll put an image of that up. And then up here you have these keys. The keys also represent Taurus. So the keys they come from the Hierophant card, because this card is connected to both of those cards. So for the Moon, the High Priestess, and then for Taurus, the Hierophant. And so you also have the pomegranates here, and they are being supported by the Earth, which is Taurus as well. Taurus is a good place for the Moon because the Moon is exalted in Taurus, but also they're in the world of the Sun, which is Tifereth. So if we look at the Tree of Life here, we can see Gebera up here, and then now we are down here with Tifereth. Now, on the actual Thoth card, we have that same concept. You have the Moon, you have Taurus, but then we have the other planets surrounding the Sun as well. And it kind of reminds me of that dinner table on the Penumbra Tarot. And so they're working together to achieve something, and that is to bring together polarities, to unify. And that concept can be seen really well in the Tarot of Stars Eternal. So if we look at the Tarot of Stars Eternal, we can see that there are the planets that are personified here, and they're standing around something here. I'll talk about that in a moment. And in the background, we can see a figure that has different pieces from two different individuals. So what is that figure? So it is the actual individual on the art card, which is the combination of the lovers, which is about bringing polarities together. So opposites coming together. If we dig deeper into this card and we look at the center here of both the Tarot of Stars Eternal and of the actual RWS card, we can see that there's a cross and there's a rose on it. So that cross is it actually comes from a unit, a cube. And if you unfold a cube like we have here, so we have a cube here, but if you unfold it, you get these sides that form a cross. And pinned to that cross is that flower, and that flower has certain petals on it that represent the physical world. Okay? And this all represents that the microcosm, which is the physical world, is connected to and pinned to the macrocosm, which is everything that's spiritual and outside of this. But the goals and everything that needs to be accomplished will happen here in the physical world. But in order to mend this fragmentation, in order to come back together and to unify, the goal of man is to bring together polarities. And this is something that we've struggled with for forever. The more we shift towards separation and not working together, the more we move away from our actual goal, which is to not ignore the dark, not ignore the light, but to unify these things and bring it together. Now, one of the things I want to switch to and talk about here is on the Alchemical Tarot is the idea of really thinking about how we give. So there's an individual giving a coin to someone else. Now, it's not just that they're giving a coin, but what's on the coin really matters. So on that coin, you have the Owl of Athena. So this owl is legendary because it was a companion to Athena, but it represents wisdom and knowledge. And when you give the right things to people, then you can empower them to climb and get out of their position, and then they will be on a level where you are. Now, a lot of people are afraid of that because they feel like if we allow people to get to our level, then they will take our authority and our power, and they're terrified of that because they feel like that will leave them alone and go back to that Five of Pentacles situation. But you can see here that this person doesn't care about that, and they are letting this person climb these steps of these other pentacles here and come to their level. And I think that the Science Tarot illustrates that well with the sun and the earth. So you have the sun, which empowers our planet. It sustains us and it creates this environment, but we also have to do our part. So our part comes from the core. What is at our core? Do we have this fire at our core that allows us to even take those steps? Or are we so beat down and weighed down by the things around us that we don't have that? And when we do have that, like the earth, it can provide its own warmth from its own central source. Okay, and we have that central source within us as well. So for this next part of the video, I'm going to be talking about the element that's associated with this card. And if you're not familiar with what I do right here, if you're new, then you can check out this video. I kind of talk about it a little bit and give you a little bit of background. But the element that's associated with this card is Prometheum. And it's named after the Greek god or Titan, Prometheus. Now, Prometheus was the one that gave fire to people. And he did this at a time where men, women, everyone was subject to the hierarchy of Zeus, or all of the other gods that had this authority. And the thing about it is they did not want people to have that power. So if you look at this card from the Alchemical Tarot, Zeus was basically the person at the top here, but he didn't want to provide access for man to come up towards his position because he was afraid of that. And so that's why he punished Prometheus for doing this. And Prometheus was punished by being tied to a stone and having his liver eaten as he regenerated the liver over and over again. But he never regretted what he did because he had forethought. He believed that we could actually make the right choices. And in fact, the name Prometheus means forethought. So his forethought was that, yes, we can provide the sun, but we also can provide the geothermal power so that they can sustain themselves and be a part of this process, and that they can actually work towards unification and bringing in polarity on their own. Now, there were others that thought this as well, and one of those people was Circe. So Circe was a goddess who actually had a love for human beings as well. And she grew up amongst the gods and goddesses, but at the same time, she saw herself as different because she had this feeling in her heart of really looking at the plight of man and feeling that burden that we carry. And so when she saw Prometheus being punished, she actually went to him and she gave him comfort, and she gave him just something that would help him get through that difficult punishment, words of kindness. She could not get in the way of Zeus's authority because he was way more powerful at the time, but she could at least do what she could. So I think that this card really does represent our ability to not just give, but to think about what we give, to face the fears of giving in the light of someone else having some sort of power and how that affects us and affects our ability to have control and whether we're willing to give up that control. It's about fear at its core as well and overcoming that to help someone else. Promethium is made by unifying two things, uranium and plutonium. And when you bring those two things together, there is this intense reaction that takes place. And this is called fission. So when you have this fission taking place, it's a very risky thing because there's a lot of energy that gets produced. But they named Promethium after Prometheus just because he took a great risk to do this, because it can be difficult, and giving in difficult times and making those decisions require a lot of balance, balancing our concepts and finding what's right or wrong. Those balances also represent justice and judging correctly. And then also when we give, we also have to understand that there could be a time where we need to receive and being willing to accept that help so that we can all work together. So thank you guys so much for watching. My name is Will. This is Atypical Tarot. I'll see you next time.